Okay, well, as Linda said, this is 5 foundational um, functions or features within Accordance. Now, of course, there are many things that people could say, wow, I really want to, this is functional or foundational for me. So it's really hard to pick 5. If you had 5 minutes to tell somebody something important, how would you explain it in 5 minutes? And when it comes to a software program, how do you narrow it down to your 5 top or favorite things? I don't know if I can, but I do think that the 5 we're going to look at today are important features and functions within Accordance. So to begin with, though, I'm not really putting what your environment or using your mouse and keyboard as a foundational function. But on any software program, it's always important, as you know, to become aware of the environment, the interface, what you're looking at on the screen. The more you become familiar with it and where things are at, then the more you become an expert at it. And somebody said too that you don't become an expert. I mean, this is on a TV commercial. I thought it was really good. You don't become an expert by doing 1,000 things one time. You become an expert by doing one thing 1,000 times. Repetition is so important to really getting it cemented in the way your behavior and what you do. So your environment, or in this case our workspace, is important to be aware, to spend time to look at what your icons are, to look at the screen, to look at the top of it, what your pull down menus are, to look at what the main toolbar is, and whenever you see an address bar, or whenever you see within a zone, this is called a zone, what are the different things that you can do? Be watchful of the small things, the pluses, recycle signs, changing your fonts, little gears, compares, sliders. All of these things are part of the environment. Then you go down to the bottom and you're going to see things where you can go do things within a zone too. That gives you some navigation. And off to the side here, you have also, this thing is in the way, but you don't see it. It's the Citrix little control panel. But you also have little sliders over here that you can move stuff around and maneuver around. So the important thing is no matter what you have on your screen, no matter what product you're in, do become as familiar as you can rather than just jumping into it. Take a look at the perimeter of each zone and see what it's offering and become aware of that particular window. Some things don't change. For instance, your icon bar probably won't change, or your pull down menu, but your zone and what you have open in full screen does change. So become aware of your environment. The other thing that's real important in any software program is a mouse. Now on touchpads, sometimes you can use a 2-finger that acts as a right click, or just some touchpads now, right click is on the right side of your touchpad, left is on the left side. I am old-fashioned. I still, for me, unless I have the touch screen on the PC, I prefer using a mouse. And I don't know, it's just easier for me to maneuver around it. And you can see, and when you're moving your mouse, always be aware when it changes. It changes sometimes to a double bar to move stuff up and down to give you more space. It changes to a beam so you can type something in, or it changes to a pointer so that you can move something around, grab it and move it. Sometimes it might even change to a hand. So as you move your pointer around on your screen, see what it's doing, and that also is, you have to become aware of that. And then we're going to talk about, as we go through looking at some of these foundational features, we're going to take a look at when to right click and what you do with a right click, and we're also going to look at double clicking and triple clicking. So people get so confused. So when do I right click? What is right clicking for? What is left clicking? How many times do I click? What do I click on? And so we'll take a look at that as we're going through these. You need to become aware of that, but you're not going to break anything by clicking on anything. You can right click on anything at any time, or you can left click on anything at any time to see what it does. So you're not going to break anything. Left clicks and right clicks have different functions, and generally it's universal. So what we learn to some extent within Accordance, or what you picked up on in other programs, will be applicable in Accordance. So that's something good that we all do with mice. And then there are some things that we're going to do with a keyboard that helps us to get to things quicker. So we're going to take a look at the mouse keyboard as well. But again, that's something that hopefully you've picked up on in other software programs. And then, like I said, become, it might seem like a tedious thing, but just become familiar with your workspace and what you have in front of you. That'll really, in many respects, help you down the road. Okay, so now the first thing we're going to begin with is not spend a lot of time, because many of you know this, and I don't want to take that for granted, but if I had just a simple Bible window open and nothing else open, I could do a couple things. I could go over here to what is called an add parallel. And this is probably one of the foundational things that people really need to be aware of. This add parallel allows me to do several things. The one thing, if I open that up, you're going to see that the very top section is an info pane. We're going to take a look at that. It also shows me any recent modules that I've had open. That's sort of nice and handy to have, because sometimes I open up something from a book, a work, and I want to get back to it. What did I just use? And I like to have this as a sort of a history. And then you have your text, which is the different categories of Bibles, and text in accordance, by the way, are Bibles, apocryphal materials, Talmuds, pseudepigraphas, anything that's a text it's divided by book, chapter, and verse. And then you have your reference tools, which are like your commentaries, your study Bibles, and things that link up that give you information on the text. So the text is the foundational, and the reference tools are those things that comment with notes and information on the text that you're studying. But you can add them up. So let's just play with that really, really quick. The first thing I might want to do is open up my info pane. This is the easiest thing to do. And I think Linda, I think Linda teaches a class, or somebody teaches a class a bit on just the info pane. And the info pane displays several information about the verse that you're at immediately. It will first show off your first 5 commentaries that have information on that verse. It shows you a list of cross-references that deal with specifically like with the word beginning, God, reciprocal. Reciprocal means that these are verses that relate to the verse as a whole. And then you have topical materials, you have text. And if you're in the New Testament, especially like the Gospels, you'll also see parallels. So, the feeding of the 5,000 was a parable that was seen in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And then other parables are always seen in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, that kind of thing. So you'll see parallels in here as well. And the info page is really nice at being able to get a really quick overview of the material that you're looking at. So in order for me to see this, though, I'm going to turn on one thing up here. It's called an instant detail. And it's a little window that just acts as a window that anything that's linked within my program, without having to open that up in a separate window, I can go right to it. So I can look at the commentaries, get a quick reading from what they might be saying on that verse. I can point to see how it turns, my pointer turns into a magnifying glass, to Bible references. And I can go down here, I can look at topics from my dictionary. I can look at the text and what it says about the book of Genesis, and I can look at apparatus. So anything that's in this window basically is hot linked to show me information in my instant detail window. And as I go into the next verse, if I wanted to go to the next verse, I go here, navigate, I'm going to go down to my next verse. Instantly I have it. I see over here I have a plus sign, so I can click on that. What that does is, if I didn't know what it was doing, and I just clicked on it, I think I'd figure it out real quick that it just added 5 more commentaries, the next 5 in line. By the way, these commentaries are in the exact order that they are found within your libraries. So if IVP Old Testament background is first, that's because it's first here in my library in the order. So the order that you see in your info pane will match up exactly like the order it is in your library. So just be aware of that. So, but the info pane is really nice, and to have a parallel is really nice because a lot of times I want to see a parallel of other Bibles. So I can go here, there's the King James, and maybe I want to add the ESV in. So now I have the ESV, I have some highlighting here. Don't worry about that. That's something different. And then I have, let's add another Bible text. Since I'm in the Old Testament, let's go ahead and add a Hebrew text in. And so you can just go through here and you can see that as I point to something, that you can see that something's happening on my windows, and that any translation with Strong's or in the original language, they all line up to show me what word I'm pointing to. Doesn't matter what text I'm in, it will right away show me what I'm looking at. So divided here and then separated from here, and then here's the Hebrew word. So this is a nice feature, this little add parallel. But there is some limitations to the add parallel. For instance, if I open up a commentary, and I'm in this commentary, now it's great that it stays right with me. So as I'm moving either by chapter or by book or by verse, you can see that my commentary goes right with me no matter what I'm looking at. So there's Deuteronomy. And let's go back here. Let's just go back to Leviticus. I like Leviticus. This will be fun. So this parallel gives me a quick overview to be able to look at multiple translations, to quickly look at through related materials from commentaries, cross-references, topics, that kind of thing. But there is some limitation to this. And again, this is the first piece, is being able to look at the parallel, to add your Bibles, and do all sorts of things. But let's move on to the next thing that I want to show you, and why, in some respects, as good as this parallel window is, it has limitations, especially when it comes to how I want to work within my commentary. So let's say I wanted to open a Bible Knowledge commentary in its own window. And I'm going to show you the difference between using it in the info pane and what happens when I use it in its own window. If you've taken Linda's classes on setting preferences, you know that you can set your default commentary. And so if I know that my default commentary is this thing called the Bible Knowledge Commentary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to Leviticus 1, and if you want to open up your default commentary directly to that verse and have that tab already tied, so that when it opens up, it's going to say, I opened up because you clicked on it from within this translation, and from now on, I'm going to be tied to wherever this translation, to wherever you go, to whatever book, chapter, and verse you go to in this translation. I'll kind of act like the parallel right off the bat. You don't have to worry about tying the tab or anything like that. It will automatically tie. So I'm going to go here, and in accordance, one click doesn't do much. It puts the pointer there, and you can see that it's flashing. 2 clicks sort of highlights it. You can now see that it says solid blue. And we're going to do this with a word too. But if I click on it 3 times, it's like clicking your heel together 3 times and saying, what did Dorothy of The Wizard of Oz say? She said something. So if I click on it 3 times, it should open up my commentary, my default commentary, in its own window, and it already has the tab there, the tied tab. So it tells me that it is already tied to, it should tell me that it's already tied to King James. So it's already tied in there. So all I had to do is just triple click on it. Now let's take a look at some of the differences, and let's start looking at some of these. So the first foundational is, get a good overview using the add parallel. And open up your little instant detail. That's a really good thing. I'm going to close the instant detail. You know what it's for, but I just want to have more space up here to show what I'm about to do. Now let's compare the Bible Knowledge commentary found in my parallel window with when it's in its own window. What do you see right off the bat that's different? Well, I still have a little gear box. I still can make my fonts bigger or smaller, right? I can close it out. But do I have an address bar where I can type something in? No. Do I show what page number it's at? No. Does it show me hits? No. Can I add notes? Not really. Not over here, you can't. So you can see that right off the bat, when something is in its own window or its own zone, I have a greater amount of flexibility. Let me just show you what I can do once I have it in its own zone. So after parallel, let's take a look at a table of contents. Now, again, while I'm here, let me just show you this. I'm going to close this out and close this out. You're going to notice that when you're in your Bibles, they really don't have a table of contents. This thing here is a table of contents. That's because you maneuver by book, chapter, and verse either up in this address bar or down here. By the way, I prefer using this one to maneuver because that's just going to that place, whereas when you type it in here, that's saying to the program, only open that verse up to that location, and then you say, well, how come I can't get back to Genesis? How come I can't get back to Exodus? Because you typed in something very specific in the address bar. But if you type it in down at the bottom, you can navigate all over the place at any time. So I kind of like whenever I want to go to it and keep the whole Bible open and be able to go backwards and forwards, I usually type in my reference down here in the bottom part. Okay, so what we're going to look at, though, is that Bibles don't have a table of contents, but a table of contents, to me, is a very good foundational tool. And so let me go ahead and open this up, and let's just take a look and see what we can do with the table of contents. Any book in your library, except your Bibles, have a table of contents. And this is a great way to be able to see and use it as a topical tool, but just to sort of see what you want to find. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on the table of contents, and right away it says here you can search for a title. And again, look at our environment. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger here. Notice how up here we have a magnifying glass. Down here we have a magnifying glass. Up here we have an address bar. Down here we have an address bar. By the way, I see another address bar up here. I see another magnifying glass, another little down triangle. So although these all have similarities, they may not all do exactly the same thing. Close, and 80% of the time they do, but not all the time. So I'm going to go here to this. How does the table of contents work? Well, if you have Accordance 10 or 9, you didn't have this little search title. You had the table of contents here, and you had to say, if I wanted to look up Leviticus, I would have to click on Old Testament. I'd have to go down to Leviticus. I'd have to go to the commentary. And I would then have to go to wherever I was going to go in Leviticus. And so that's how I used to have to do it underneath Accordance 10. But now under Accordance 11, I have this little filter up here. And some of you have other programs that have this little filter as well, which is, to me, it just made sense. And so now I can just go up here, and let's say that I wanted to go, if I type in Leviticus, I may not get anything. Leviticus. See, yeah, there's Leviticus 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can go right to Leviticus 1, Leviticus 2. But more than that, I can also type in a topic. So let's say I wanted to use the Bible Knowledge Commentary, and I wanted to use it to study the topic of, since we're in Leviticus, of priests. And I want to see, what does the Bible Knowledge Commentary have to say about priesthood, and that kind of thing. So I'm going to type in priest up here in my little address bar, P-R-I-E-S-T. And right away it filters out and grays out anything that does not have to do with priest. And so right away I'm kind of using this as a topical way to navigate. This is really good, especially like if you're in journals. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and open up a journal. To open up a journal, I'm going to just click on the plus sign, and then I'm going to go down over here to my journals. And let's open up just a journal real quick. We'll just open up one. We'll try the same thing. I'll pull this over to the side. Oh, I can't because I'm full window here. Yeah. So why won't that go? Oh, table of contents is open. Too big. So let's make this a little bit smaller. I guess I could pull it down below it. Oh. Come on. There we go. Okay. Go ahead and close this out for now. Now let me pull this over. Let's make it adjustable so we can see. So again, this is a journal, and let's see, I can go back here, I can type in priest, P-R-I-E-S-T, but with any book at all, or even journals, I can use the table of contents to see. So we have 1934 through 2012. These are journals. Now, do they have any any information on that topic of priest that is found within a heading or subheading, that means it has to be not just doing a concordance search, but I want it to be addressing a relevant heading or title that deals with priest or priesthood. So I just go ahead and type in priest, P-R-I-E-S-T, and right away I can find through all these journals. And here's the first one, The Empirical Priesthood of the Believer. Why a Preacher and Not a Priest by John of Zondervan Publishing, and so forth. So I can go through all of the stuff, and it's acting kind of like a topical study by just using the table of contents. And by the way, you have this little triangle here. You can set it here for doing an English search, a Greek, or a Hebrew. And I think over here you probably get even more, no, English, Greek, or Hebrew. So it depends, like especially if you're in a lexicon or something like that, you want to see what these little down triangles do. Sometimes the down triangle is history, and it just shows you your history. Sometimes it shows you what languages you can type in. So just be aware, always find out what that little magnifying glass will allow you to do when you're searching for a word. So table of contents is really, really important. It's a really great way to study, and you can get a lot of great information. There's a problem, however, with a table of contents, and that is this. Let's say that I want to copy this. I'm going, wow, this is a commentary, and this would make a great outline on the priesthood of the believer, or the duties of a priest from Genesis all the way through Revelation, through the entire commentary. I can't copy it from here. I can see it. I can sort of say this is a great way to navigate, but I can't really copy it. So, Richard, what do I do? Well, okay, glad you asked. I'm going to take off the table of contents, and I'm going to go now to our basically what I call my third fundamental, the thing that I get more excited about than anything whenever I'm studying text within Accordance. I just love this little address bar and this field token. So this is sort of like a conglomeration. This fundamental includes several things. It includes the field token that you see here, your address bar, which is where you can type something in, and a little display button. Now on a Mac it's on the right side, and on a Windows it's on the left side. But we're going to take a look at using those three things together within this one window, and why, to me, it's foundational on being able to manipulate whatever you're looking at to find really core, relevant, great materials. So to do that, we were studying priests in the table of contents, but this is a commentary. How do I get to actually having to display what I was just looking at in the table of contents on priests? Well, you use this thing called field token. Now, every book that you open is going to have different abilities or characteristics. And again, this is something I encourage you, every time you open a book under Accordance for the next week, always look at its field token to see how you can manipulate and look through that text, because you're going to see some differences, and play with it. And it's just a lot of fun. So reference means that it's the main Bible verse. It's why it came to Leviticus 1, because that is the reference for that commentary. Then from there we have titles. Titles allows you to find what a word is in the main heading, just exactly what we were doing in the table of contents. So we're going to take a look at that, click on titles, and we don't have Leviticus because now we're on titles, so it's not looking for a reference, it's looking for a title. Now let's take a look at this address bar. I love the address bar within a zone, because the minute I start to type something out, it helps me. I like that. I'm not a good speller. Let's say I want a Nebuchadnezzar. I type in the letter N, E, B, and so if I wanted to search or find titles that deal with Nebuchadnezzar, there it is. And it doesn't matter if I did it here, it'd find it by title. If I chose content, it would find it by content. Now you're not going to be able to choose scripture because, again, we're looking at a noun, a proper noun, and not a reference. So I like the fact that whatever you are typing in Greek or Hebrew or whatever, it tries to help you spell what is available in that word within that particular book. So you can look up a word, you can look up a command. So if I hit not, if I was to do several words, I want this but not that, or this and that. If I was to look up a book of the Bible, Leviticus, it actually look up Leviticus for me. So I can use that title, this bar here, for either a word, or it'll actually help me to actually get background information on Leviticus and commands. But we were studying priest, so I'm going to type in priest, P-R-I-E-S, and as I do, you're going to notice that there are various words for priest. Priest, priesthood, priestly, priest. I don't really need that one, but I'm going to leave it in for now. And I'm going to just type in P-R-I-E-S-T, but I do want to have priesthood and priestly. So I don't want to just do one at a time. I want to be able to, when I hit enter, I want it to be able to find all of these at one time. I know that each of these are words that are present within the Bible Knowledge Commentary. So what I'm going to use is a wildcard, and most people use this. It doesn't matter whether you have Google or any other program. It's a asterisk, which is your Shift-A key, puts that little asterisk there. Now that means it's going to find all those various endings for priest. And so I've got it all set up. I have priest and under title, and I hit enter, and it says I have 59 hits. The instructions concerning the priesthood, the garments for the priesthood, and then I can go down here and I can go to the next hit, the next hit, the next hit. And this is nice because it's putting everything together in one window that before, when I was in my table of contents, I had to, go use the table of contents to navigate. But now I kind of have almost a dictionary with only the articles that deal with that. But let's say I want an outline. And again, this is a commentary. So let's say I want to even refine it down to a preachable outline form or a usable outline form. Well, again, this is exciting because right from here, now I've used my field token. I've used my address bar where I've typed in a word. It showed me the words. I put an asterisk because I wanted all the wildcard endings of it. But now I want an outline of it. So I'm going to go over here. Again, on the Mac, it's on the right side. On a Windows machine, it's on your left side. I'm going to go over here to my little display token, and I'm going to show the text. Right now, it's checkmarked as all text, but I want to just display it as paragraphs. And generally speaking, when you have a heading or a subheading, there's usually a hard return after that, so it's considered a paragraph even though it's just one line. That being said, because of that, the minute I show as paragraphs, I'm only going to get primarily my headings and subheadings, which should theoretically produce a pretty good outline to work off of. So I'm going to go from show text as all text to paragraphs. We're studying priests, and are you ready for this? Magic. And there we have it. So I can make my font a little bit smaller or bigger, but I just want you to see the beauty of this. So here we have a wonderful outline that deals with priests, all the way from Genesis to Revelation through the Bible Knowledge Commentary. Look at all that great information. Everything you want to know from a commentary about priests. And that, to me, is I can use this in so many wonderful ways. While I have this set up, and I'm going to do this again, but while I have this set up, I'm going to show you a fourth.
Richard?
Yeah.
Michael has a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed when you show the text as, what does add titles mean?
I'll show you that. If I did show text and add titles, what it does is it says Leviticus commentary and numbers. This came from Numbers, so this came from. This is good because this will show me where it came from. So you don't have to. This way, you know that this is all from 1 Samuel. This is all from 1 Chronicles. And that, so that's all it does. It just shows you, where it's coming from.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's sort of, isn't that neat though?
That's really nice.
Yeah, and so so then let me do this. Since I've got it set up, just for fun, I want to show you this other little thing called cycling, and this is where we're going to use our keyboard as well. I'm going to stay with Bible Knowledge Commentary. I'm going to stay with my Well, I'm going to do it two ways. I'm going to first go back here to the reference. And since we're at Leviticus, I'm going to go back. I'd like to go to Leviticus down here. Oops, it's going back to titles. So let's go to Leviticus. Yeah. Go to Leviticus. Come on. Okay. So we're at Leviticus, and I'm in a commentary. Now, I have a class that I talk about where you can, open up multiple commentaries and have them all tied together. But a lot of times you don't need to do that. Sometimes less is more. And if I can get to the materials quickly, that's all I really need to know. And so we have a way that you can cycle through all your commentaries. And your commentaries that I'm going to cycle through are going to be in the exact order that they are found within my library. So whenever maybe you're starting to see the importance of setting up your library with your favorite dictionaries on top, your favorite commentaries on top. Doesn't have to be alphabetical. I always like to put my favorite stuff on the top. I've even created categories for my commentaries so that I have background commentaries, analytical commentaries, application, and I've been moving those types of commentaries into that kind of a folder so I know what goes where. And so, but when I start to cycle through, whether it be a commentary, a dictionary, a Bible, anything that you have open, you can cycle through other related works that are, like when I say related, if it's a Bible, you can cycle through Bibles. If it's commentary, you can cycle through commentaries. Dictionaries, you can cycle through dictionaries, all on how you set up your field token. So if I'm in a field token and I have it defaulted as to a reference and I'm in Leviticus 1, I'll go ahead and put a Leviticus 1 in it. And I want to cycle through all of my commentaries. I can, if I wanted to, I could go here and I could say, I want to switch from Bible knowledge commentary to the next commentary in line, which is analytical commentary, New American commentary. So there we have New American. And then if I want to get to the next commentary, I can click here, I can go to commentaries, I can go up here, and I can go to another commentary. So, boy, that seems to be sort of laborious. Is there a faster way? Yes, and that's why I like to cycle, and that's what the keyboard's all about. So now that I have a commentary open, and let's just get back to my default one so you can see that it does go in the order that I mentioned. So we'll go back here to Bible knowledge, yeah. And so now I'm going to cycle through. So to do that, I'm at Leviticus 1. If you hold your control key down on your keyboard and hit your equal or plus key, it will go forward to the next commentary. If you hold the control key down and hit the minus key on your keyboard at the same time, it will go backwards. So you can go forward and backwards. In other words, you can cycle through all of your works very quickly. So control and plus takes me to the New American Commentary, takes me to the NICOT. There's nothing in the New Testament because I'm in Leviticus, and that's the NIC New Testament. Anchor New Testament. Hermeneia doesn't have anything. Adam Clark does. MacArthur's New Testament. And it depends on how you have it set up in your library. But you can see by just hitting the plus and minus key, you can go forward and you can go backwards. And you can see that it's changing in the tab. And that way I can cycle through things. Just to show you, I'm going to open up my library. We're going to open up, I don't have to open up my library. I always do that. Let's just hit plus sign here. And let's go to a Bible text. Let's go to King James. And here's the King James. And so what do? I'm in Leviticus. I hold my control key down on plus. It goes to New King James. Plus, 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 minus, minus, minus. So you can cycle through Bibles. If I'm in a dictionary, so let's open up a dictionary. And this is again a mouse thing. Within Accordance in most programs, if you right-click on something, you get options to provide you information on that word. So if I right-click, I can search for it. And this, you can do this in a commentary, dictionary, it doesn't matter. You get these options to search and use groups to copy, highlight, all sorts of things. So right-clicking is for, I always say you want right information. Right-click for information. What kind of information you want? You want right information? Use your right mouse. If you want to select something, it's a left click. So again, remember, if I click on a word one time, it puts the I-beam there to tell me that that's sort of the word I'm interested, that's sort of I'm looking at. If I double click on it, it actually highlights it and bookmarks it in blue. And that way I can be studying, other things, or especially if I, was looking at a word in my parallel Bibles and I'm losing track, I just double click on it. But if I triple click on a word, that triggers something entirely different within Accordance. If you're in a regular work, it'll open up a dictionary. If you're in a Bible that's connected to Strong's, it'll open up your default lexicon. And the hardest thing was to learn how to triple click, 1, 2, 3. So 1 click, put your beam there, 2 clicks, highlights it, but 3 clicks, because I'm in a commentary, should open up a dictionary. And it did. It opened up my International Standard Bible Dictionary to the word sacrifice. And since I'm at sacrifice, can I carousel or cycle through this just like I did my commentary on that one word? Once I have it open, I should be able to. So how do I do that again? Hold the Control key down, plus key to go forward, and you keep going if there's nothing there, and minus key to go backwards. And that way, you can open up one window and you can go through all of your books within that category that have information relevant to either that topic or to that Bible reference. And so cycling is a fundamental thing, kind of like your table of contents. It really helps you to navigate, open up one work, but then you can then go through all of your works that have information on that one specific title. So that's how you use the cycling, and why it's important to get to be aware of your field tokens. Look at this field token is different than this field token. I always like to look at the field tokens and see what they have available. Since we're here, let me do one other thing, just to practice something in a little different way, but to practice something. If I'm at a reference, I'm at Leviticus 1. Let's switch over to, remember I did priest on this, so if I went back to title, let me just hit I don't think it goes back, but if I go to priest, yeah, it remembered you see how that, when I went back to priest, it remembered that I was set up as a field token as title, and it produced all of my hits on priest. So that little magnifying glass here gives me a history, and that history does not remember how you have it set up for display, but it does remember what you've done and whether you used what field token was associated with it. Well, we're going to go back to Leviticus 1:1 and see how it went back to reference. I like that. That's smart. And we're going to change it to a different commentary. Let's, rather than cycling through, I'm just going to pick a commentary here just for fun. If you're in ministry or a preacher or a pastor, I could use Butler, John Phillips, N.T. Wright, Warren Wiersbe. I'll just pull Butler. But what I have here is, this is Butler's commentary on Leviticus 1. And this is nice because I have Leviticus 1 here. And so sometimes after you've opened up a commentary and it's important to read, sometimes you want to just say, I'd like to see what the outline is of this, if it has one. Not all commentaries will provide a good outline, but if it's a preaching commentary, it usually provides some sort of a decent outline. So how would I, just like when I was in a commentary, a Bible knowledge commentary, and I made an outline of the topic for priest, how can I get a complete preaching outline for Leviticus 1? Well, I have the information here. I just need to know how to narrow it down. So again, I'm going to go over to my little display gear here, and right now I'm still showing text as all text. And I now want to show this paragraph because just like I did for the topic where it just gave me an outline, this is going to filter out everything but the headings and subheadings. And once I do this, boom, now I have just the outline that it has for Leviticus. The neat thing on this is that you can manipulate through your address bar thing. So if I want just a complete outline of all of Leviticus, I take out any numbers. Of course, you can say I want chapters 1 through 4, or let's just do that 1 through 4. I'm going to put 1 through 4 and hit enter. And now I have an outline for Leviticus 1, 2 through 9, 10 through 13, and it will take me all the way up to an outline of chapter 4. Let's do Revelation. I'm going to do the whole book of Revelation, just that quick. There's a whole outline from this commentary on Revelation. Now look, because I have it set up with my display and I haven't closed it out, what would happen if I switch it from Butler to another commentary? Well, let's take a look. I'm going to switch it from Butler now to, let's see, where's my preaching commentaries? Let's go to John Phillips. And here's John Phillips, the significance of the book, the person of Christ unveiled, the purpose of God unveiled. And so now I have an outline from John Phillips. Sometimes there's more of a paragraph there. That's okay. Once you have it set up, as you cycle through it, you can sort of see what's available. So now we're playing with the cycling, we're playing with the field token, and we're playing with the display. And all of that works together in a very unique way to make your studies more rich and satisfying and honestly just fun, because you get to do so much with them. So let's while we're here, let's play around with this a little bit more. Let's open up a couple other works besides commentaries to see what happens if we do. So I'm going to go here. Let's open up Handfuls of Purpose. I don't know if you're familiar with Handfuls of Purpose, but it opened right up. Since I was at Leviticus, it opened up to Leviticus and the priest high calling, and good typology here between Aaron and the believer for those that in the New Testament. And so I can right away do the same thing here. I can go here. Now my history is brand new on this because I haven't done any searches here. So I can go here to titles. I can type in priest and put in my asterisk for a mark. I can look at what it has to say. Sometimes he's actually, I like Handfuls because, again, you got to play with each one in your environment. Because sometimes what he's saying about the priestly calling here is exquisite in this typology of what follows. And if I changed it here to show text as paragraph, I might miss it. So you have to play when to use your display and when not to use your display. In this case, I might have article, but I do not want to lose, and I can go to the next article, so I'm not looking at the full text. But play around with your display. Play around with your field token. Play around with how you can manipulate words within an address bar and use your wildcards. Let's take a look at another work to show you another example of this. So I'm going to open up another work, and I don't know where it's at, called Gather Gold. So I'm going to go to my library, and this is something to be aware of. Here's the address bar here, and this address bar is similar in that it helps you find a work within your library, but it's not going to have the same amount of options that this address bar does, or even that this one does. Your research bar is saying you're searching through your entire library, so it's not going to help you spell. Only your books that you open up directly in their own zone, in that address bar, will it help you with your spelling. So just be aware of that. Some of these, because it's searching more than one book, you have to know how to spell. But over here, this address bar is for specifically finding a book in your library. So I want Handfuls. I'm going to type in hand. And it's kind of helping me spell because it's filtering out anything that has the word hand. And here's Handful, and then you're going to notice that I have an I next to it. I can click on that, tells me about it. And if I right-click, remember right-clicking is for what? Information. So if I right-click on it, because I don't know where it's at in my library, it says, you want to see where it's at in your library? I right-click, it says, where do you want to see it? I'll show it to you. So I'm going to now left click on that, and it's going to say that Handfuls of Purpose is actually found under my commentaries in a folder called Preaching Outline. So being able to find a book is really good, but I want to gather gold. So let's go back up here. I'm going to type in gather, and I want to know where it's at. I don't need to. I can open it right from here, but I sort of want to know where it's at. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say show me where it's at in my library, and it's found under preaching. So that's good. So let's go ahead and open that up. So here's gather gold, and now I'm going to manipulate these items again to show you how it works. If I was to look at the word priest and hit enter, you see, first of all, I typed it in. Do you see any priest here? No, so it wouldn't do me any good to type it in under title, would it? Because I won't get anything. So that's no good. But I do believe that there's something there about priests. So the next thing I want to do in my fill token is let's try content. Notice that this only has 4 characteristics in it. So let's go to content and let's type in priest. P-R-I-E. And there we have priest and priesthood. Good. So I do have something there. I'm going to put my asterisk, and I'm going to hit enter. And over here it tells me there are 10 hits. It is the priesthood of all believers. And then I can go to the next hit down and the next hit down. But I have all this other stuff in between. So let's narrow that down by using my display. Let's show my text. And the brother that mentioned, I'm going to add the titles in here. I know where it's coming from. So under assurance, if the priesthood of all believers is the first fruit of justification, assurance is the second. Under Jesus Christ, Deity and Humanity by J.C. Ryle, and so forth. So look at that. It's narrowed everything down, and it's just showing me quotes, and the section it's coming from on priest or priesthood. And this is really great because at this point, I could type in anything. I could type in goodness. And because I have it all set up, now I have nothing but quotes from all these different categories on goodness. So every type of work has ability to do something different, and to be able to manipulate it to get at what you want it, to help you, you need to be aware of all the time your field token, and whether you're doing titles. You see in this one, titles wouldn't work, but content is actually providing the best results. So as you play with the books, play with the characteristics, play with the show text to see which way it provides you the best information. And that really will help you. And then at the end, if you like it the way it is, and you've got this workspace set up entirely with your displays right for the books that you have open, at any time, rather than having to set that up every time you're studying, if you have your favorite books open and they're already displaying correctly and so forth, don't forget you can always save that workspace by clicking on the workspace icon and then saying add the workspace, and then I can type in class 1. And so if this workspace was closed and I went up here, let's open up a new workspace, and I went up here to workspace 1, class 1, it will open it up, and all of my field tokens have been saved correctly with the work. My displays have been saved correctly. So everything that you've worked hard on to produce how you want your program to work, once you save that workspace, all of your settings that you had currently, not all, 90%, I think there are a few that for some reason that don't, but 95% will stay with your workspace, and so you don't have to come back in and reset those things up. Yeah, are there any questions before I go to our final thing? Because I've covered some of this sort of fast, but any questions that anyone has? Okay, so let me just finish with this. Let me open up my Bible again. Let me open up a parallel info pane. Let me open up, by the way, if you're in here, you don't have to click on, if you're in your info pane, you don't have to go down to your reference tool to open up the commentary within the info pane. If you want to actually see what the info pane, just click on it and it'll open right up within a window. So you don't have to it opens up your favorite one so you can actually see the full thing. And that's a little thing, but you should know. It just is a helpful thing. And so then also let's open up a commentary. And let's open up a word study by triple clicking. And this is brand new. You guys are seeing something that has not even released yet. This is the Theological Dictionary of the Old Testament, the 15-volume set that will be released next week. So I'm playing with it. Isn't that great? I get to play with it first. And so, here's a couple things. The first is you have your info pane, and you can get a quick overview of things. It's fundamental. The next thing is opening up a commentary and being able to look at your table of contents. Whether you're in any kind of work, you can look at your table of contents. You can type in a word and be able to get around. The next thing is to be aware of your field tokens. Well, actually, before that, field tokens, I guess, is, look at what's available under the characteristics of that work. And then set your field token either by a Bible reference or by a word, and go forward and do your studies. Then you also have the ability to set and display your text. So you can show it as all text or articles or paragraphs and add the titles to it. Then when you have a work open, you can use your keyboard and Control+ to go forward and Control- to go back. Same is true in my lexicon. I'm at this particular Hebrew word, but if I want to go to my next hit on it, I just hit Control+ and it goes to my next Hebrew, my next hit, halot, and I can cycle using my keyboard through all of my works that are from that category on either that topic, that word, or that reference. So cycling is important. And then be aware of your address bars, what they are good for, what they can do, finding books, locating, helping you to spell, adding in commands, that kind of thing. So that's that part of it. The last thing I want to show you, and this is important, is using your mouse again. I'm going to close this out. So let's say that I'm at a word heaven, and I want to highlight that. Remember, it's a 2-click to just highlight it. Once that word is highlighted, I can go over here into my library, and I can go to a dictionary using my mouse. And let's say I wanted to look at Zondervan. This little icon here is an amplification on that one word. I can click on it, and it'll open that dictionary to that heaven, if that's something I wanted to look at. And from here, what could I do? I could cycle through it. Or I could triple click on it and open up to my default. Sometimes I want to do that. Sometimes I want to open up something separate. But anytime you're at a word or a reference, if I'm at this reference, I double click on it, puts a little blue line there. I go to my commentary, and I hit the amplify button, and it should open up right to that Bible reference. See how that works? Now, the reason I'm showing you that is that sometimes that's good for doing it one book at a time. But the last feature that I really like is class we do, it's on your research tool. And to do that, I can go to the word heaven, I can right-click on it, I can go to research, and I can search through all my preaching resources that I've created a collection on. And it will display all of my commentaries and dictionaries that deal with heaven. I can do the same thing on a Bible reference. I can right-click on a Bible reference. I can do a research on the Bible reference through my preaching resources. In this case, I do not have to set my field tokens. I do not have to set anything, because it's looking for that scripture, it's looking for that topic, and after it's through, it's going to come back. And it doesn't matter whether you're searching through a Bible, a commentary, a dictionary, it's going to find the stuff that's related to the verse or verses you're looking for from all of your works. And that's a fundamental tool that's an invaluable part of research, is being able to find all information on any given word or any given verse at any given time in your library. And so after I go through all this other fun stuff, it's sometimes really good to end with doing a research on a verse or a word. I think I'm out of time, covered a lot of territory, a lot of fun stuff to play with. Are there any questions?